Council, I want to call the workshop to order. This is a council workshop called and convened this evening, January 27th, 2026. It was announced for the purpose of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. This is our annual audit. We are joined this evening by Mr. Lee Grissom, who is with the S. Preston Douglas and Associates LLP. And he will give an overview of our audit. Chris Klein, our financial director, is here to open the discussion. If anyone shows up for questions, we will address that at the end of the meeting. Mr. Klein, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for being here tonight. We are here tonight to discuss the results of our FY 2025 audit. Our auditor from S. Preston Douglas and Associates is here to present the results. But before I invite him up, I just quickly wanted to take a second to thank all the departments throughout the city for their assistance with this audit. It truly is a year-long effort. I wanted to, of course, thank my finance department, and more specifically, I wanted to thank our accounting staff, Tamar Kirksey, our senior accountant, and Jordan Anderson, our staff accountant. There really is a lot of work that goes into this that a lot of folks don't know or see about, so I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank them. And of course, I wanted to thank the audit staff at S. Preston Douglas and Associates for their hard work and just being a great partner to work with, and I really appreciate them. And with that, I'd like to introduce Lee Grissom, partner of S. Preston Douglas and Associates.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here to present, as Chris said, the June 30th, 2025 audit for the City of Greer. This is our third consecutive year auditing the city. And I'll just straight up just say this was a good audit once again. So most of the information is going to be very positive. We have a slideshow we'll go through. A couple of notes. We did issue the audit December 15th, 2025, and that was basically on par with previous fiscal years. And a lot of effort from your staff and my staff as well, putting together a 114-page set of financials. It's no easy feat, and they keep adding more and more standards, and it gets more and more difficult. I don't know if there's a lot of value in the pages they're adding, but it's quite a feat to get it out, even December 15th. So. And once again, the city received the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I think it's either the 25th or 26th year, and that's a very high standard. So not only is the city going through our review of these statements, that we send that off and they review it and scrutinize the pages, and it's definitely a very high bar of reporting. So a very big accomplishment once again. Before we get into the slides, just a note on internal controls. I think this is our third year working with Chris. At least in my opinion, I think he's very technically sound in governmental accounting. So just wanted to say that. He's done a great job. The city, I counted yesterday, I think there's around 40 funds. So it's like managing a separate financial statement. So it's pretty complex internally. So and very few adjustments on our end. I think maybe a couple of reclass entries, but really signals that the books were in great shape. There were no budget overages or timeliness issues with getting the stuff to get the audit complete. So really everything from an internal control standpoint that we looked at, we were satisfied with. And we'll go through these metrics just to point out two outliers. In the governmental funds, the Corporation for Greer, that activity, I think last year it was 42 million came in installment purchase proceeds, so it really bumped up the fund balance. And as that money is being spent each fiscal year, I mean, that's sort of kind of an outlier. So when we look at that information, just keep that in mind for 2024 and 2025 fiscal years. And also the ARPA money, at June 30th, 2025, there's still $1.5 million to be spent in your governmental funds related to the ARPA funds. So I just wanted to point those two outliers out, and let's get into it. Okay, I don't want to bore you too much, but there's lots of opinions in this 114-page opinion. You have the traditional financial statement audit opinion that's saying that you can rely on these financial statements. That's the meat of the report. And then in governmental accounting, we have to do compliance work. We have to test internal controls and test compliance related to the federal grant expenditures. That's considered a uniform guidance audit. In all cases, we issued an unmodified opinion with no findings. So that's sort of pointing out kind of what we did here. And again, we issued an unmodified opinion. So these are the types of opinions. Adverse is the worst. So that's an absolute crap storm. We just walk away from the engagement. You know what I mean? But I have not issued one of those. You don't really want to engage with clients like that. The disclaimer is also you're running away. You don't have enough documentation is what a disclaimer is. And qualified means everything's okay except something. And so we issued unmodified opinion, meaning the documentation supported the numbers and we felt comfortable. Important thing with auditing is to be independent too. So if you look at our opinions, it says independent auditor opinion. So that's very, very important. Okay, so let's get into the numbers now. And most of these, if not all of them, are very, very positive. I really like every client to look like the City of Greer. So we have 10 fiscal years of financial information, going back to 2016 to 25. And this first one's just cash. This is basically cash all funds. So June 30th, 2025, you're at about $86 million in cash. And if you go all the way back 10 years ago, you were below 20 million. So really nice increase overall. But I think a lot of that's going to be spent next fiscal year, is my understanding, with the Fort Greer. So again, kind of a little bit of an outlier from that standpoint too. Now, outstanding debt. Now, this has increased significantly. You see it was basically in the same range from 2016 to 2023. And then a significant amount of debt. I think it was $43 million that was added in the prior fiscal year. So you're about at $75 million in debt at June 30th, 2025, the far right column. Now, I want to show current ratio. So this is a ratio as it relates to debt. So what this is your current assets divided by current liabilities. So you say, okay, that's a lot of debt, but really what you want to know is what do we have to pay in the next 12 months? So that's what's included in your current ratio. And you do see it's been trending downward since the debt increase. However, you're still well above 2. So 2 is kind of, if you were to use ChatGPT, I think it says 2 is a good number. But anyway, we're at, looks like about 3.5 for this fiscal year. So you're safely above kind of a 2. I mean, if you were going below 2 or at 1, that would be problematic in my opinion. Okay, this is fund balance for your governmental funds the last 10 fiscal years. Again, as I mentioned, a little bit of the outlier is the Fort Greer project, which that's about 30 million of this $82 million, which is in the blue. The restricted fund balance is the, I don't know what color that is, some type of off yellow for you color experts, but I don't know. But that's the restricted portion of fund balance. This is really just equity in your governmental funds.
Why would we not put Fort Greer dollars in the restricted funds?
I think it may be. See that line increase? I'm pretty sure it is. That's a good question. I can check. But let's see.
I was just thinking that you said it was part of that whole, the blue line.
Oh, and it is. It is. It is.
But the yellow is the restricted.
Exactly. And it's in that. It's, you see the yellow is over, it looks like over 50 million. Yeah, so it's in there. And the Fort Greer is around 30 million. So of that, looks like around 50 million in restrictions. 30 million it's in there, restricted.
One other question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Why would from 24 to 25, we had a decrease in restricted funds? Is that because we paid
That's it.
That's it? Okay.
As the construction goes on, that'll decrease, and you'll see next year even further.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm thinking some of these graphs, it'll settle more to where you are in 2023.
It may have even been where we paid ourselves back from the property purchases on the front end of that. Now, Chris, I could be way out of my skis on this, but that could be reflective of that as well.
And this next one is just a pie chart for, this is your general fund revenues by percentage. So your property taxes are showing in red on the pie chart at 57%. The next one would be franchise and licenses at about 15 million. That's 28%. So that's most of your general fund revenues. I have your business licenses for this fiscal year were about 13.2 million. So that makes up most of the green color at 28%. And here's a breakdown of revenues by source in the general fund for the last 10 fiscal years. So in blue, you see property taxes, how that's kind of increased over the last 10 fiscal years. In green, you have your business license tax, and then in the yellow color, that's hospitality tax, which that looks like that's been pretty flat. That was around, the hospitality tax was around 4 million. The business licenses I just mentioned was around 13 million, then your property tax right around 30 million for this fiscal year. So a nice increase. Really, most of these graphs are very, very positive. And then now to expenses, general fund. This is your breakdown. So the public safety, basically every municipality is like this. So you're at 47% of that pie chart, which is about $20.5 million. That's your police and fire. The next one would be general government at about 8.6 million. And then public service is the 14% in orange, and that's about 6 million. And this chart, this is expenditures by growth by segment. I'm not a particular fan of this one. I'm going to keep moving, but it just shows you for those different categories the increases in expenditures. Okay, back to the general fund. This is your general fund balance for the last fiscal year. The health of the general fund and any governmental unit is extremely important, so you can see that how that's trending over the last 10 fiscal years. You're at 30.9 million for June 30th, 2025. And this is showing your general fund's equity. And there's just a couple of non-spendable categories, and then you have the unassigned portion of fund balance in the general fund at just 30.57 million. And then this one I like, this is number of months in reserve. So what this is in your general fund is you take that unassigned fund balance number we saw on the previous slide, divide it by general fund expenditures. It kind of works as your emergency fund in the general fund. And this has been converted into number of months. So usually if you just do that calculation I just said, that would be a percentage. But if you convert that into number of months, so you have about, in this fiscal year, 8.5 months in unassigned fund balance. So this is pretty strong. I would say anything over 6 months is really strong, particularly the size of Greer, I think. And then it's always relative to the budget and everything. The smaller municipalities need a higher number because expenditures relative to their size. You really want that more of a cushion, but I think 8.5 is really strong. Okay, as I mentioned before, in governmental accounting, we have to audit internal controls and then do compliance work related to the federal expenditures. And this is the first one. This is basically just saying we audited Yellow Book, that's your internal control, your report of internal control over financial reporting. Basically, there were no material weaknesses and significant deficiencies in internal controls. And then this is a major federal program. This is uniform guidance. Basically, we're required to test, as I mentioned a second ago, the federal grant expenditures. And there were no findings for that as well. Okay, and I feel like I'm losing the crowd, but auditing's like that. But anyway, here we go. The housekeeping items, and I'm going to run through this quickly. I mean, hopefully, if you want to look at this a little bit more in detail, I'm sure you have access to the slides, or Chris could provide them. But basically, for this fiscal year, we didn't have any disagreements with management. There were no new significant accounting policy changes. And just to point out that part right there about management's judgment and accounting estimates, just be aware when you look at a set of governmental financial statements, I did not show the pension liabilities in these graphs. Chris was talking about it a moment ago. But you can see it on page 24, long-term obligation. You see pension liabilities at about $31 million, significant estimates there. So that's what that's pointing out. Like, this is not, so if you see your total assets at $223 million, your total net position at $116 million, just know that there's some significant estimates that are very sensitive to, it's not like cash in the bank. We know this dollar amount. And with the pensions, that's basically actuarially determined numbers. And so I don't really have a lot of control over that, but I just wanted to point that out.
For the pension dollars that we set aside, I'm looking at that chart. Show me again where you were talking about.
Oh, in the financial statements?
No, in that one statement you were just talking about the net positions. Where is the deferred inflows, the pension deferrals?
Well, the comment was about management's judgment and accounting estimates.
Well, my question is this, and I was trying to just talk with a number, but I understand why you have to set aside, because so I've got some automobile companies and some hot water.
Right.
But what is that money, does it make us any money? Why is it sitting there?
Well, the whole purpose, and if you go back 20 years ago, this was not on the balance sheet.
Right.
And the whole purpose of page 24, which is a statement of net position, and then 25, your statement of activities, sort of giving a long range. It's got your long-term assets, capital assets, and then long-term debt. It's trying to give you some type of snapshot of all these things that would be, if you were running a, Coca-Cola company or whatever, not budgetary accounting.
But didn't we have to, over so many years, build that number up based on the actuarial evidence when they first?
Some people would restrict fund balance. I would see. I've seen that before. Maybe that's what you're talking about.
So my question is, whatever dollars we have to have, where is that held? In the general fund, or is it held, and do we make money off of it?
The answer is no there. Yeah, no. No, it's held, that's held at the state. The money that's, the pot of money that the plan assets are gonna, cover the liability.
Yeah, so that $33 million that you outlined is
Exactly.
our portion of the state's pension liability.
To cover us.
To cover our portion of it, yes, sir.
Right,
So
right.
so we don't set aside funds
We just
to
send
pay
it.
that. It just recognizes that that liability is
Okay.
out.
That's
Now,
right.
so to answer your question, no, we've not set aside money. Now, I would hope and I think that PIBA is putting that money into something that's gonna yield a return. But in this particular case, no.
It's the state.
Yeah.
That's where,
There was a catch-up period.
Back in 2014.
I was gonna say 10 years ago, there was there was a catch-up period. And it really came from the private sector, because that's what the population was aging, so, okay, all right, I'm clear on that.
Okay. Any other question? Any questions on that? You good? Okay. So again, audit adjustments, there were no significant audit adjustments, as I mentioned. There were no uncorrected statements, no disagreements with management, and no significant issues noted. And then then thank you. But so again, in conclusion, unmodified opinion, that's the highest level of assurance that an independent CPA firm can issue on a set of governmental statements. The GFOA award, huge deal, as I pointed out. Great job by the staff, and Chris has really impressed me over the last 2 fiscal years managing, all these funds and in a very high level of accuracy. And he also asks great questions when there's new accounting standards out. So been really impressed with you guys' staff and over the last couple of fiscal years. And I think that pretty much covers it. Is there any additional questions?
I'm sure they may be. At this point, council, we are in workshop, so no need to make a formal action at this point, but the floor is open for any discussion, questions, comments, anything that you'd like to review at this point in time.
If I may, Mayor, just for the benefit of our 2 new council members, to kind of give a little bit of perspective of what we're doing and why. The state requires, and good governance, quite frankly, requires an independent audit be done of every local government every year. And this is what you've got here. We choose the auditor through our standard procurement process where we solicit solicitation for proposals, but this is something you will see and do every year, and it is an independent breakdown of where we stand financially, how we're managing money. It doesn't make a judgment call on how we spend the money from a budgetary standpoint, but i.e. policy, but it's how are we doing things from the science of accounting perspective. I think that's probably the quickest and easiest way of understanding what it is you're doing today.
And where will this audit go? Is this to get submitted to the state, or is this submitted to the state?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
You may have heard when we were in Columbia, and I don't know that there was a conversation that involved it, but if it's not done in a timely fashion, there are ramifications from the state up to and including them holding the subdivision money that you would normally get. So Lake City, who went years without an audit, they finally just cut off all their money. They lost
Oh, wow.
$1 million+ a year for a while.
It's due 6 months after fiscal year, so
Yeah.
we'll be same for this.
Yeah.
And just to give a little context, there's an accounting shortage, and they don't really teach governmental accounting in colleges, and so I see all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can't take for granted this presentation, as boring as this is, and, clean audit, good job, but you can't take it for granted. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff out there that I see. And some bad accountants around. So, yeah.
I think it's worth noting as well too is that part of that is the difference between governmental accounting and corporate accounting, or whatever it's called, actuarial accounting. It's a different beast to some degree, and I think that throws a lot of people, particularly sometimes that just want to grab an audit and start looking at it or picking on it or that kind of thing. There's typically and for council's information, there's typically a rhyme and a reason to how things are done and why they're done that way and where it is and that sort of thing. You've already mentioned, 40 fees. I think at some point in time, we'll try and pare that number down just a little bit because it can get excessive. And, as much as we've grown, and I know those accounts have grown as well too, but it's always good to hear that, that we're on the right track and things are going well. The other thing that I will mention for our new members is we've got a 10-year look back in this, but y'all haven't been doing it for 10 years. We rotate this around, and have had some success doing that and making sure that we don't have the same set of eyes on it for too long, and somebody's time will come back around in time. So we appreciate, your insight and overview tonight. So with that, council, I'll reopen it again to whatever conversation you might like to have.
I like the fact that you put, I know our policy is for our reserve fund that we want to have, 35%? And you put that over into months, which is good. I see that we came down from like a high of 9.9 now to 8.5. if you had to make a recommendation about carrying those kind of dollars, what would you say? Would you say, you know, you need to, 8.5 is great, you don't need to do any more, or what?
It really varies. I mean, I have some beach municipalities, several of them actually, and you think they need a lot of money. But then again, every time something happens, FEMA comes to the rescue.
Yeah.
So what do you tell them? You know, it's really hard to say, but I do think that around 8.5 is strong. Now, if you were at 16%, I would say you want to go higher, but it's.
What percentage are we at now, Chris?
What is that?
I think we were somewhere around the neighborhood of 42%.
42%.
Now, don't quote me on that, and I'll get you a better number, but if 35 is our threshold, I think, well, I'm, from a percentage standpoint, that's what I think he was asking.
Yeah.
I think, but I'm gonna let Chris get a better number for
Yeah.
you. And I think it's also important to point out, if I'm not mistaken, but aren't the GASB standards for the fund balance like 16% of your annual operating? So y'all's policy doubles the general accounting standards, fund balance.
Our first stab at that was 15%. You remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, we've done well with
Yeah.
that. That's,
It's been over 50% too.
yeah.
I'm just curious, you know, over the years now we've grown to, I think you said 40 different funds. Have you ever seen a situation where municipalities have like outgrown their accounting software? And I guess in our case, it's been nice, at least over the past 10 years, but over the past 2 or 3 years, we've added standalone entities like the golf course. Now we're going to be bringing the Sports and Event Center online where they have almost like a standalone business. Do you foresee that being a challenge on our current accounting mechanisms? And just get your thoughts.
That's a great question. I see more of the times when there's turnover and then you see it going from good to terrible really quickly. But that's a great question. And I was familiar with your previous CFO, and he did a pretty good job for a long time. It is good to have a fresh set of eyes, and I think I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it is something good to look for. But no, the answer is no. I don't usually see it growing out. It's usually the reverse, where everything's good, and then you wish you could go back to the good times. But it can go down really quickly with the wrong
So
hire.
maybe to clarify, if I may, Mr. Booker's question, will you be presenting enterprise funds
I
in this
see.
particular case under different scrutiny than you would any of our other funds? No.
No. But really what it depends on is the individual you hire and what their capacity is. And that's really it. So if you have a person that's just used to a really small municipality and then maybe 3 funds, and then all of a sudden you guys hire that person for City of Greer, it's going to be not good. So it's really, I think Chris is up for the challenge. I mean, I think that would be the key is to have the right people running and enough staff, to support. So that would be the issue is if you're used to a business office with 4 staff historically, maybe make sure to budget for additional staff would probably to keep up with the volume.
I guess in my head, I'm thinking of redundancy, fail-safes, like, if that one person is gone or those 2 people are gone, then you're in a world of trouble. But if
Yeah.
you had something,
That's a good question. And historically, people a lot of times they don't value accountants. They're, for whatever reason, it's a throwaway, and they don't put any money into it, and then you end up paying for it later when everything becomes a mess.
I know Chris is the good-looking face of the accounting department, but why don't you tell us about your staff and what you see as future needs, maybe in personnel and/or technical equipment? I think we've got a good snapshot, and I know for your time here, it's gone well. You've done some reorganization and moved some people around, but it seems like from what I see on a day-to-day basis and what we hear, things are clicking along pretty good. So maybe want to spread a little of that credit around.
Yes, sir, yes. We do have a great staff. We have a staff of about 12 right now. We did have some restructuring, right before I got here to where some folks moved to different positions. Wasn't an exact apples to oranges comparison, to where we, certain folks moved around. But we did hire last year we promoted our staff accountant to a senior accountant, and then we then hired for a new staff accountant, so that's helped tremendously. And those are the two individuals I thanked because they did a lot of this work in the audit, and us being able to hire them helped us still maintain the manpower to do so. The biggest struggle I see is going forward, especially as the 4 Greer projects come to fruition, is our accounting software. We have been using that for about 20 years now, and it was a good accounting software at the time when we were a smaller municipality, and I think we've just outgrown it, and we have been looking at other options, and that's something I'm going to bring to the table come budget time. That's my number one priority for next fiscal year, so that way we can ensure everything's running smoothly and efficiently. With that software, I'm confident that we have the support still to where we wouldn't need to hire additional staff. That's just right now kind of what's been our biggest issue day to day. But we've been getting by, and we have a positive staff and a great team, and it's a pleasure working here and working with them.
What software are you using right now?
Currently, it's Smart Fusion.
Smart Fusion.
Yes, sir.
What, I'm sorry, real quick, to Mr. Booker's point, then, as we go online with the Sports and Events Center
Yep.
and some of the other projects, is that when you would anticipate a realistic need for newer software and more people?
Yes, sir. And that's going to be coming up in a year. And, if we are able to look at other options, an implementation could take up to a year. So that's going to be, a bit of a challenge, but, we are up for that challenge. But, with the golf course and then with Sports and Events Center potentially operating as enterprise funds, it could look a little different to Mr. Booker's point, and what that may look like on the accounting side of things, especially going forward.
Thank you.
So the software we're currently using, do we host it here?
It's hosted, yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, you pretty much got my vote to move to something else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Both the same question, both of you guys. As we continue to trend upward, and I don't see us stopping that for a very long time, the skills necessary to run what we're talking about right here, what kind of training, and maybe you don't see it, but what kind of training that we either need now, I say training, education, whatever, so all of our folks are able to move up, to the next position or wherever, but where where the whole department has a really good understanding of what's going on and is able to articulate that to whoever may ask a question. Is there education out there for that? And if so, what will we be looking for?
Absolutely, yeah, great question. So we do, our senior accountant actually had taken the CPFO, which is a credential, because we do offer, professional development like any other department. So we are trying to make sure everyone's staying on top of those things. We do have some employees who have great institutional knowledge, and we do have some younger or less tenured employees. So there's a combo of both, but kind of cheesy answer. But overall, to answer your question is, we look for staff that are just willing to learn. It can be very complex, but as long as, you're dedicated and you're passionate about it, you can learn it. At various levels, right?
Right.
Depending kind of in the finance department, looking at a staff accountant versus looking at our payroll team. Those are two different, they're both in accounting, but they're both different skill sets. One may require a 4-year degree, one may not. But it's more importantly just during the interview process, if it has to come to that, looking for the right folks, and kind of starts from there.
Okay, and I know we do a pretty good job of that, but I guess, let's say you've got your staff accountant, and then we also have a senior accountant. If this person who's at the that has the title of staff and they aspire to go to senior, do we provide that kind of education? Is it out there that would?
Yeah, and it could depend on what they're trying to do long-term as well. They may choose to go get their master's, and maybe they have their, just general bachelor's degree. They may choose to get a master's degree in something a little more specialized in accounting. Or they may, again, get a different credential, like I mentioned, the CPFO. So there are options out there. It kind of just, would depend on what they're interested in. But ultimately, to answer your question, those resources are out there and
Yeah,
available.
Mr. Airwood, if I may, just to add a little color to that, building the bench is very important in all of our departments. And so the idea for, regardless of where you are, whatever department it is, upward mobility is something that we encourage. And actually what we've done through the class and comp system is when we go through and you look at the job descriptions for virtually, maybe 80% of our jobs, while there is a requirement for education to some degree, for most positions, there's a modifier in there that says, or other experience as, and so we're not so dogmatic in some positions that we're going to restrict upward mobility because of the lack of the sheepskin, where you've got somebody that's got, now accounting's a little bit different, however, but we are intentional in doing what we can to build our own and educate our own to get them credentialed to move on up.
Okay, and this is really, it's hanging on to the audit, but when someone comes in your department, and let's say it's a preliminary review of their performance, or maybe even it's their yearly, do we ask them where they want to be in a couple of years, 5 years, and then chart a path how they might get there? And that would involve the educational aspect, because you were saying that there's not a lot of stuff out there about governmental accounting. And so, that's what I'm.
Absolutely, yeah, we do value our staff's long-term goals and trying to assist them with that, and, having those discussions, not even just on the front end when we first meet with them, but every year whenever we're doing our performance reviews.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Great. Just trying to see what goals they may have, not even within the next 5 years, but within 1 year, and what steps are they taking to do that? Yep, absolutely.
Chris, I don't know if, I'm sorry, Chris.
I was just going to say others.
Go ahead.
Others?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you're planning with the budget coming up to ask for that new software, but it would seem to me that you don't want to be stuck in a transition from one system to the next in a year when the event center comes online, plus with the fiscal year coming up a little bit later. That seems like a good transitional point. So something I would be thinking about.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yeah, we are considering all options as we, take these next steps, and, we may have to delay the start, if you will, but, we are looking at those as we proceed. Yes, sir.
Good.
Council, I do like for department heads to worry that their budgetary requests might get cut at the administrative level. But in this particular case, it doesn't sound like you're going to allow me to do that. So, Chris, just add it to the budget, I guess.
Good job, Chris.
Well done.
You seeing the green light, buddy? Others? Gentlemen, we appreciate your time, realizing that it's not just 45 minutes we got to spend together tonight, but a year's worth of work. And to both of you, thank you for your services and your service to the city. I want you to convey that to your staff as well, too. And if council, if you get snowed in this weekend and want to read this 140 pages or whatever it is over the weekend, Andy or Chris will be glad to answer whatever questions you've got. So
Have a quiz on it.
They'll be around. So thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. I don't see anybody to participate in the meeting. Nevertheless, we will close the workshop with me asking by a show of hand if anybody would like to ask a question about the workshop. We'll dispense with asking 3 times. We'll close the workshop with the remark that nobody indicated they wanted to speak. And with that, we will stand down until we reconvene at 6:30.